The question is, the graph below shows the percentage of Australian exports to 4 countries from 1990 to 2012. Okay, write at least 150 words. You should write at least 150 words. Now let's understand the graph first. So here are four line graphs. As you can see, the blue one is Japan, which is slightly sloping down. Then US, which is the brownish one, which has up and down slope from 1990 till 2012. China, there is the ash one, which shows a gradual rise from 1990 till 2005. There is a rise, and then after that there is a steep rise from 2005 to 2012. Okay, and finally India, which is in blue, it has been on the same level from 1990 to 2000, and after that there has been a increase, slight increase till 5 points, slightly above 5 point, and then a slight downward till 2012. So these four countries line graph has been represented. What is this line graph represents? That is the percentage of Australian exports to 4 countries. Okay. Now let's understand this graph, how you will draft the report writing for your IELTS exam. That is the task 1. The given line graph illustrates the proportion of Australian products exported to 4 countries between 1990 and 2012. Okay, that means these countries receive the products from Australia. In general, while Australia exports to China and India increased over the period. So for China and India, the exports increased over the period. The US and Japan saw a decline in products. You can see the Japan and the US both are showing a decline in products imported from Australia. In addition, China experienced the biggest increase in exports over the period, making it the biggest export market of Australia from around 2007 onwards. So you can see the graph, that is for China, it increases sharply, okay, from here. So that means for China, the export has increased, okay. In 1990, Japan was the leading export market for Australia. Okay, so you can see in 1990 what was the scene. That is, Japan was above 25 points, okay, percentage wise, receiving over 25% of all exported goods. China, however, received only a mere 5%. So at that time, China was only not even 5%, slightly below 5% only. So here you can see in the introductory paragraph, or in the first line, you show that is what is this graph about. That is the 4 countries depiction. And in this part, that is the most striking features, that is the next paragraph, you give the overall depiction. Overall depiction was that Australia exports to China and India increased, whereas it was declined for US and Japan. So this is the most observable features. So in the next paragraph, you give the most observable features. Now coming to the detailed part. In 1990, Japan was the leading exporter of Australia, receiving over 25% of all exported goods. China, however, received only mere 5%. So, in the third paragraph, you will give the description of each line graph. Okay. By 2012, the percentage of exports to Japan had dropped below 20%. So, by 2012, the Japan's export decreased to below 20%. Okay, you can see from this graph. Also, while the figures for China saw a dramatic rise to almost 30%. For China, it increased above 30, nearly 30%. Okay, so here also you can see year-wise they started at it in 1990 till 2012. The comparisons has been given by between China and Japan. Meanwhile, Australia exported just over 10% of its goods to the US in 1990, which was around 10 times higher than the exports to India. So you can see 10% of its goods to US in 1990. So in 1990, it was for uh, for US it is only 10% of its goods. So you can see in this graph, whereas for India it is too low. Okay. So over the following 22 years, the figures for the US fluctuated and dropped to 5% by 2012. So the figures for the USA, so first it was given as the USA, that is, it fluctuated. So you can see for US, the graph has really fluctuated, okay, for 22 years. The percentage of exports to India, on the other hand, remained unchanged until 2000 and then increased to about 7% in 2010 before dropping slightly to roughly 5% in 2012. So as you can, it's clear from here, that is for India, it is above 5%, it's around 7% and then dropped to 2012. So this is the depiction of all the four line graphs. Now, overall, you can understand that is the first, this one, the first opening statement, it shows the description of the overall graph. What is this graph all about? In the second paragraph, you actually mention the most striking features, that is the highest and the lowest. And then the next paragraph, you give the descriptions of each graph. Okay, relative competitive comparative comparisons can be done, as the comparisons has been done between China and Japan, and then Australia's export to US and India. So that comparison comparative way also you can write it, your report. So I hope so you have understood this, and let's see the remaining ones.